Good morning. I just want to make sure everything's working here. Good morning and welcome. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Yoga Stretch. And I'm excited to be with you today. And I've got a few things for us before we get started. So, Yoga Stretch, yoga has a lot of kind of spokes that come out of it. And there's a lot of different styles. They're almost like brands if you think about it. We had really just a couple really big influencers that came over to the West, and out of that you may recognize like BK Iyengar, and also I can never pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try to hack it. But went through the Ashtanga has a very huge following. So these two kind of big yoga gurus, if you will. There was one guru, these two came underneath him, and then they brought these teachings over to the West, and it's kind of grew from there. And I hear people say, oh, I like flow, I like yin, I like Bikram, I like hot, I like whatever. Those are all brands really underneath this spoke. And then it's interesting too, because what's happened is I kind of came in as a student kind of long in here, and since then, and that was about I'm going on 17 years of just yoga. Before that, it was fitness for me. And underneath that is now people, of our genre here, incorporating things, Pilates into it, and incorporating other physical fitness techniques that we've done here in the West. Maybe not quite as long, most things here, like our medicine is like 100 years old. It's not that old. Whereas you look at things like India, where their medical system is 5,000 years old. So there's kind of a difference in how long they've been gathering their data. And then of course, the intricacies of yoga. We can get into it. I mean, yoga itself is flooded with its own issues going on with it as well. It wasn't always this beautiful, we want to try to be these yogis. It was kind of shunned in a lot of aspects. It led into the circus in some ways. It has, the teachings are kind of vast, and it kind of depends on where you got it. And a lot of this stuff wasn't written down. And because it wasn't written down, it was more taught, and it was taught student, from their teacher. And their teacher had, these disciples basically underneath them, and then they emanated what the lessons were, and they lived them before they went. Here in the West, we teach the physical asanas of yoga, and we just teach how to manipulate the body in those things. We don't really dig deeper. So most of our teachers are learning as well. It's kind of like this dual fold thing, rather than just being underneath someone for a very long time as you understand the philosophies and other things. So Yoga Stretch to me, and I've called it everything. Yin yoga, people seem to run from that because they're like, I don't know what that is. It's just a slower moving yoga, meaning I oftentimes don't even get off my back on the floor. We kind of just stay low, although you can. I've done everything. It always depends on what the intention behind it is. What do you want to do in that class? What is it that you want, to feel, or what you want to happen in the body or the mind? So today I brought together, and that's kind of my niche, my thing, is I like to kind of think about what it is that we're going to be doing, and then see if we can layer in a lot of these things that we now know to be true, which is we know yoga works, we know aromatherapy works, we know that deep fascia repair works, we know that going fast, it has its purpose, and staying slow and holding the poses has a different purpose. And they're both good. So it's just, in my opinion, good to do a variety to get a full kind of spoke and bridge and understanding of what this is, because yoga in and of itself is simply balance. That's it. If you want to look at the yoga asanas in the physical body, that's fine, but it's not what it's about. It's about finding balance in our entire lives. And we can't really find balance in our lives until we start to figure out how to find balance in our bodies. All right, so we start there, we start looking within. And then when we look within, it starts to just naturally unfold outward. So today we're going to be working some props, and I just don't want you to feel bad if you're like, I don't have any of these. I can't do this class today. Yeah, you can, and I'll just kind of fudge our way through, as I do with everything in life. You know what? It's thrown at you. We'll just have to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. And in yoga, what I love about it, and having been in physical fitness too for so many years, is that there's a lot of things that we can do to modify, and whatever that word means to you. So we're going to, start with just what our props are, and then we're going to get going. First, we have a roller therapy, which is why I was having people purchase them yesterday if they didn't have one, because it's really helpful in some of the things that we're doing. Okay, so we have that. I also have 2 tennis balls. Maybe you just have 2 tennis balls, or you're like, go grab those tennis balls. Yeah, go grab the tennis balls right here. And I will warn you all right now that I am a 14-year-old boy. Yes, those of you that are like laughing at home, they're like, she's a 14-year-old boy. when it comes to balls. So I like to say, grab your balls, get your balls, here your balls, blah, 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 blah. Balls. So I don't have any, so I get to now say them. Balls all day. So grab your balls and put them next to you. You want to keep your balls close, right? And you really should have a matching set. They just work out that way. It just keeps coming. I can't help it. 12-year-old boy. Even my son's more mature than that. All right, so then I also have a block. All right, so again, if you have these, wonderful. If not, we're going to work our way through it. I'm going to start you on your backs, and I'm going to sit right here for a moment, and I'm going to read to you something that I opened right up and found this. And I swear to you, that's why just so you know, I'm an investigator by heart. Like, you're not going to be like, hey, look at this on Facebook. And I'm like, I believe it. No, some work goes into that where I start to do it. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, do you guys have some information? Because I'm gathering data. And I'd like to ask my friends, what do they think of this? So by doing that, I have found that it either alienates or pisses people off, or people have, are like, I'm with you on that. And, is that our purpose? What is our purpose here? And mine is always information. I started that way in nutrition. I'm like, they're lying to us about our food. So it's not a big stretch that I'm like, they're lying to us on the news. You know what I mean? I'm starting to look at that stuff just because it's my nature. So let's fall into our backs. And I want you to read you this based on what I've been just saying about that. Because I found this remarkable that the universe gave us this today. So I love the universe. Thank you. I do. I love whoever's helped guiding us that we don't see. Thank you. Jesus, Allah, universe, God, all of it. All right, so let's lay on our backs. And this posture is called Supta Baddha Konasana. And it's done in a lot of ways. We can do it seated. We can do it, when we're on our backs. So when you fall to your backs, your feet start on the floor and you're just here. And then your knees open out to the sides. So as your knees open out to the sides, you're going to simply bring your hands either out to the sides with palms up, which I love because it stretches the bicep and opens the heart and chest. Or you can place the right hand below, kind of below the belly button, right between the two hips. And then we'll place the left hand like in the center of the chest or near what's considered to be the heart chakra. And then the chin is down, the eyes are closed. And that way we can move into that slow, deep breath here that we usually spend the first couple minutes of class is just kind of reconnecting to breath. So it's taking you out of what's outside of your body, and we're pulling you to what's inside of your body. And that's our very first lesson in yoga, period. It's a connection to our body, but it's a connection to the breath. And the breath is the gatekeeper to our subconscious. Like if you were to pass out, for whatever reason, not because you drank too much, of course. But if someone, I don't remember when you're little, you made people pass out. But if you were to pass out, God, don't do that. You would obviously continue to breathe. And your body has this capability of doing things for you that kind of understand the mind, like drawing blood in and healing cells and gathering things to manipulate, make new cells, to shed off, to cell death. There's just as an instance as one. So allow the breath now to guide you, because the breath, one, tells the psyche what to do. So when it's slow and deep, it says we're calm, we're relaxed, because that's how we breathe when we're calm and relaxed. What I love about this is it's not rocket science. It's science. It's really not. It's common sense. And when you start to feel it, everybody that does it goes, because it doesn't lie. It just feels good. This is from the Book of Awakening. The author is Mark Nepo. It's weirdly dated today. The issue of fairness. As long as we see what has come to pass as being unfair, we'll be a prisoner of what might have been. This is a very painful issue to discuss for most of us, because so much of how we see the world hinges on a sense of fairness and justice. Those truly noble humans, concepts that govern how we treat each other. But the laws of experience in the natural world, in which we have no choice but to live, they don't work this way. Rather, the larger universe, of which humankind is a small part, is a world of endless possibility and endless cycle. A world in which life forms come and go. A world itself that has erupted and reformed countless times. The breaths are now slowing to about 5 to 6 counts as you breathe in, and then the same as you go out. Just see if they match. So this is why the Hindu tradition has a deity known as Vishnu, who both destroys and bestows life, often in that order. Although fairness and justice are beautiful gravities by which we as human creatures try to live with one another, The storm and the germ, the termites eating the foundation of your home, the errant stones breaking your windshield, the wave swamping your little boot. These molecules of experience do not understand what is fair. They just bombard us in the endless cosmic dance of life that just keeps happening. And I know that over the years, my own cries that life is unfair have come from the inescapable pain of living. And these cries, while understandable, have always diverted me from feeling my way through the pain of my breakage into the reformation of my life. Somehow crying unfair has always kept me stuck in what hurts. So I offer what has surprised me most in my pain. That life is not fair, but unending in its capacity to change us. That compassion is fair and feeling is just. And that we are not responsible for all that befalls us, only for how we receive it and for how we hold each other up. So just take your last deep breath here, and I'm just going to remind you to check back in with it periodically as we move through this. In our next position now, we're going to just reach over and start with the roller. So let's start with the roller. As you're on your backs now with your roller, we're going to gently push ourselves up. So I'm going to bring my knees together and my elbows into the floor to lift. Just if you have mobility issues, you're moving slowly. So I place the roller behind me. If you don't have it, it's okay. You can use your block here actually in lieu of this. If you have one, if not, you'll just fall back onto the ground. All right, so here we go. Falling back onto the roller. And I'm grabbing it, I'm holding it just like I would hold the block so that I can fall back. There's a couple places, and I'm going to go to an angle here that you're going to place the head. Depends on the position of the neck and which one feels better. So if you're falling just back onto your back, it's okay. Just go back to where you were. If you're going onto the roller, I'm going to take the edge of it and try to line it up to the edge of my head where it turns into my neck. So I might need to do that a couple times. So that way, when I push my head down to the floor, the crown of the head is hovering off of the mat, and the back of my head is pushing into the circle that's opening. Okay, it's very neutral for my neck. And I have deep injuries in both sides of my neck right now, and this is neutral to me, but you may feel differently because of your neck. Now, if you're here and you're okay, I'm going to open my knees back out to the sides, just like I was doing. And this time, my arms will stay out to the side with the palms facing up. So we're going to just kind of open up the pecs here as it relates to the shoulder. So the shoulder is your deltoid. We have medial, which is the middle of the muscle, the biggest portion and the most used for strength. And then we have the anterior and the posterior. So the front of the rear deltoids. And those muscles are a little bit smaller and they govern the rotators. So the rotator muscles are there to help protect the ball in the socket. If this bothers your neck, you would slide the circle up so that the back of the head doesn't fall back. It's on the circle as well. It's on the roller. So either of those, it would look like this, which I have this ponytail here. So my head is on it, my neck is completely neutral. It has not taken any type of position, whereas this may fall back. Again, they're both extremely comfortable for me, so feel free to do either. Once you're here now, we've got about 4 deep breaths, allowing the gravity now to begin to open. There's another thing I'd like you to notice. I'll be popping in and out of these poses, so please try to hold them if you can. Is the beauty of these postures is oftentimes the length of the pose. So in flow yoga, I've got us moving and we want to be in the pose somewhere between 5 and 10 breaths. Whereas this one, I'm going to have you here from somewhere between 1 and 3 minutes. Some poses I'll do longer, some shorter. But here, while you're here, is you're simply learning now how to be still. And sometimes for some of us, that's the hardest thing in the you can do. So just simply breathing in and out. I have also another reading for you as you're here. And this allows us to be in the positions that oftentimes are a little bit uncomfortable for longer periods of time. Or maybe I don't have my other book for you. Well, that's a big one. But that's okay. We will just stay put and read. I have another one, but I didn't bring it. All right, let's take about 5 breaths there. And just see if you can keep your mind as clear of thought as possible. So as you're taking the next couple breaths here, I've got your chest kind of opening. Even if you're at a regular Supta Asana, I still leave the chest opening because we're going to be getting into the top chest and the pec, okay? So this area we're going to be getting to, and we can't just start pushing around. I mean, we can start pushing around in there, but we really want the body to respond to us. We're going to start to connect all these elements. Now, when you're in this space here and your heart is lifted, it's lifted higher than it normally is. It taps into the heart chakra, which is called Anahata. And then we're going to play a sound now that amplifies that chakra, coordinating with those muscles. What I'd like you to notice here is just simply how you are responding to the sound. Close the eyes now, and then just notice how you respond as you breathe slowly. In as we slowly make our way kind of into the next phase here. So Anahata, and its color is green. It's kind of like a yellowish tinge to the green, representing kind of almost light. This deals into obviously love and the heart chakra, but it's compassion, opening the world to see beyond just compassion for ourselves, our family, and into the world. It goes in that order. So the compassion begins with compassion of self. Without compassion of self, we have no compassion for others. So oftentimes when we are attacking other people, maybe it's on Facebook, maybe it's just a response, it's because that's what we're feeling inside for ourselves. We don't have a lot of compassion for us, and so it's not bleeding out into others. When that bleeds out into others and we can start to move into that capacity, then it kind of moves into the world. So we can kind of see how that goes, but it gets stuck. You know, sometimes we're like, it's all about the world, screw you guys, you know, we don't, you guys don't agree with us, so, you know, we don't have compassion for you. Well, that in and of itself is not compassion. It's like Gandhi. I mean, you think about the higher representation of what compassion might mean to someone like that. All right, let's take another couple seconds now as we come off of this roller. The first thing you're going to need to do is bring your knees back together, though, so that we have something that we can launch off. So once you're here, you're going to push into that. And then from here, we're going to press just into a neutral back and come up. Use your hands. Turn the circle, if you have it now, so that it's long ways. And I'm going to place it right here at the base of my lower back, and then just kind of pop up. Now from here, we can roll. Right now, we're on the lower back. So I've kind of got us below. If ladies, think about where you would attach your bra behind you, or you would strap up or wear in between the scapula there, in between the shoulder blades, generally between the shoulder blades. All right, now I want you below that, just gently rolling back and forth. Your own body weight, you're probably going to feel some crunches in there as the vertebra pop back into place. They're going to pop out of place just from sleeping, let alone whatever the hell you're doing to it or lack of doing to it. Now, as you make your way up towards the back of the shoulder, see if you can just roll it out a little bit. My arms are neutral. Fitness, they have us holding like a ball socket all the time. You know, whatever. It doesn't matter so much my arms as I'm just kind of rolling through the back. And eventually I want to get up towards the back of the shoulders. Now, you don't want to be here too long because your neck could bother you for some of you, but as you're just kind of moving back and forth. The book that I left at home, I had a copy here. I always have copies of this book. So I'm going to read it to you in a moment. When we get into another pose where we're going to hold the pose, I'll read to you so that it can kind of keep your mind occupied. And then we can start to think about some of those deeper concepts. It's a really great way when we're doing some of these longer holds. All right, take your last couple moments as you're rolling, and then you're going to release it. I'm going to use the block. Now, you don't need the block for this next one, so if you don't have it, it's not a deal breaker at all. It won't feel too much different, but it's better if you have a block. So we're going to take our block, and after you've moved your circle or your roller off to the side, I'm going to take this block. Now, with the block, the feet are onto the floor, and we're going to take it and place it underneath the right foot. And as you place it underneath the right foot, then it's going to make sure it's lined up with your hips.
Your Facebook class says they have no sound.
No sound at all?
Somebody's texting.
Oh, no sound.
My apologies.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Oh, no sound. Okay. I had a message come through that I have no sound. Don't know where to do about that. Except to put the sound over here, maybe. This is a bummer. If we have no sound, I don't know how to fix that. Now we're coming down and back up with the hips. So down and back up. Just slowly moving through the hips. So as you're moving your hips up and down, the focus should be on the foot that's on the block. With your foot that's on the block, notice the big toe mound and continue now to press down and up. Continue now to press down and up. On the next one, we're going to hold our lift. And as you hold your lift, you're going to take 2 to 3 more breaths. We have one more exercise here, and then we're going to see if we can release this glute in much the same manner, okay? So we're going to release the glute in the hip. From there, the left foot comes up. I'm going to place the foot on top of my thigh, lift the hips up, and then extend the leg to the sky. Once the leg is up, we're going to lower both the glute and the heel all the way down to the mat, and then press the hips all the way back up with that leg to bridge. And we're going to do that about 8 more times or so. So just keep moving through your body, lifting your hips all the way up, and then all the way down. All the way up, all the way down. Couple more of these. On the next one, you're going to hold it up and see if you can take about 2 to 3 breaths here. Try to get your hips to lift up a little bit higher. Push your elbows and shoulders into the mat. Point the toes. Take your last big breath. Place the left foot, the foot that's in the air, on the floor. Pick up the other leg and cross the ankle over the knee. Push the hips up to the sky, holding now as you kind of push the right glute or hip up. As the right hip or glute is pushing up, take one more breath. Lower your hips, stay here. Lift the left knee up, figure 4, flex the toe back. Now push that right knee forward. You get a really deep stretch on that glute. You can stay here. You can grab the hamstring or the shin bone of that left leg, pulling that into the body, pushing the knee away. Now's the time to relax the feet. You don't really need them. Bring the chin down and relax the shoulders. You've got about 5 to 10 breaths here, holding this figure 4. So as you're holding this figure 4, I'm going to read to you. I just hope you can hear me, because this is a big fat bummer. Because I had people set this all up, and it's still not working. So just don't know what to do about it. Okay, so you should be feeling that hip and the glute releasing quite a bit. And you've got you're maybe about halfway. Keeping tight inside of them. Their magic must be very powerful, or she wouldn't want them back so badly. This is from Spiritual Journeys Along the Yellow Brick Road by Darren Main, the author. We've been reading this during our stretch classes here. This is called Keeping Tight in Your Shoes. It's from the movie, if you can remember. Keeping tight inside of our shoes means not letting go of our principles. It means having our goal in sight and not taking our eye off of it. It means keeping our spiritual integrity intact even in the face of death. It means feeling fear and experiencing temptation and yet not bowing to them. So keeping tight inside of our shoes is largely like the first commandment of Moses. You shall put no other God before me. On a simplistic level, this means don't build bronze statues and worships other gods. But on a deeper mystical level, it offers us an anchor with which to ground ourselves and our lives. It helps us to cut through the distractions that the wicked witch puts in our path, and it keeps our focus on liberation. That's interesting where we left off on this. All right, so now you're in your figure 4, right? And you're taking your last breath here. This is where we're going to start grabbing our bowls, if you will. So as you are now lowering your foot from your figure 4, take your right foot back onto the ground. And then from here, we're going to straighten our left leg out, pull the right knee up. Grab the kneecap, bring the chin down, and with your elbows in, pull the knee to the armpit crease. Continue to draw that knee towards the armpit crease, but keep the foot relaxed. It's not way out to the side. It's lined up with your armpit, and it's compressing the side of the belly. So continue to draw in. Squeeze. Then from there, you're going to release the foot, place it onto the floor, release the knee, place the foot onto the floor, bend the other knee, lift your hips up once you're in your bridge, and then we're going to take a ball, slide it kind of underneath the right glute, and then come down. The funny part about this is already you should feel something. So first and foremost, just make sure it's not unbearable. The rule is the foot that we're not using under the ball, right, the left side, you push into that side to take the weight off the right, the one that you are using. So now straighten that right leg out, the one that's on the ball. Keep this left foot, put pressure into it, you come out of it. Less pressure, it goes deeper down into it. So the gravity of your body. You will be here for a while, not in one spot. You want to take 5 breaths in one spot, lift your hips up, not off the ball, and turn them slightly before setting back down again. You'll find new spaces to be, and it's going to be lovely everywhere. Sound is on. I can't figure this out. We're just going to be live here with us. So if I can get you guys closer. Okay. So I think you can hear me here. So the way that we have this is we have that ball right underneath the glute. And then we have that leg is straight. All right, so all we're going to do is lift up and turn it just slightly. And you're going to do this as often as you need to. So just kind of moving around and holding. Staying there. As a child, I saw God as being petty and jealous. He'd be angry if I paid attention to some other God and would punish me for not honoring him completely. But now my views have changed. I experience a God who is at least as compassionate as humanity's most compassionate act, and as least as logical as humanity's greatest intellectual achievements. In fact, I would have to believe that he is all that and then some. To think that God is as petty and frail as some of humanity's darkest chapters is depressing and short-sighted, as it offers the believer nothing but guilt and fear. With regard to the first commandment, the higher road is to realize that it is not a wrathful God that will punish us, but rather an ego gone crazy. To put anything between God and the soul is to set the individual up for disappointment, pain, and despair. Nothing in this world will last. Empires will fall, mountains will be flattened, our bodies will age, wither, and die. If we worship any of these, we will absolutely feel pain because they will never love us back, and they will change with the passing of time. It is a fact that we must accept. Life in the physical means change, and it is only our attachment to the form of things that keeps us in bondage. Deep. Okay, so what we've been doing, hopefully, is you're moving around. Most people, when I look around the room, they're like, oh, because it's, you find that you're like, you didn't know you were sore here. But what's happening is these muscles, especially along the glutes, they become very tight. Most often when we feel discomfort or pain or we experience really tight hamstrings, the hips have shifted in a way that the workload has been disproportionate. And oftentimes the glute is an integral part of how that shift has occurred in the hips. So the core and the hips are probably the first thing that tend to go out in our bodies, and then the rippling effect occurs. We clue into it and start to notice it when it kind of starts making its way down towards the hamstrings. Sometimes we'll get knee pain, and that stuff just, you can't walk with this stuff, so it slows you down. So eventually it takes you out of your way. But if you look back in hindsight, you go, it really started back here, right? All right, so now as I'm going out to the right, I'm going a little bit more, so I'm turning. Oh, so you're getting out more to the piriformis here when we get to the bottom part of the glute. So if you roll down towards more the meaty part of the bottom of the glute, for ladies, at least it's here, you're gonna feel that. Really feels good to get on that outside edge. So my left foot here, right, I'm putting weight into it or out of it to allow the amount of pressure that is in that glute. All right, and then we're going to slowly just kind of move towards that side. So if I reach under and I grab the ball and I just drop and I turn my body to the side, kind of how you're like just kind of watching TV from the side. This is how it would look. So I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to place it where my hip bone is, all right? So you got to see this. It's right where my hip is. I'm going to slide it underneath that. And then I'm going to wait for it to kind of sink in. There's a little pocket right underneath my hip. And if you're like, I don't know where it is, you haven't found it yet, okay? If you're more like, oh, you found it. That's what it looks like, okay? So it's up here, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I think that, yeah, that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to lean into it. My arm can be elbow here because I'm really using my body weight in here. I could go all the way down, resting my arm also onto it. I'm going to be here. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to lift that knee up just a little bit and then come back down onto it. And then I'm going to move you over here. Okay, so we're on the ball. And then we're just going to lift up and then come back down. Lift up. See how my feet are together? And then come back down. Good. Now get to a point where you can lift up. You don't want to go past 12 o'clock, so just find a spot you can hold. And I'm kind of leaning into it here. There's a good pressure point here that I want to get into. All right, so now we're breathing. I'm looking for my book here for you guys. So we're just leaning into that ball. I'm going to stand my elbows here so it's a little bit easier for me to read. Okay. So the Wicked Witch will entice us with sex and romance and wealth and power and every pleasure imaginable. But none will bring us happiness, because even when we have them, we know on some level they won't last. When we hold on to things we know will change, there is a base level of fear that permeates our existence, even if we won't admit it to ourselves on a conscious level. Every pleasure with, it's going to be rated G here, all of our pleasures will be followed by arousal. Every drunken bout will be followed by the sobering reality of the pain we were trying to hide. And every relationship will have its painful moments. Money will come and money will go. All things in this world will change. So keeping tight inside of our shoes means doing our best not to worship these false gods. It means putting our spiritual life first in all things. Yes, even before our families, friends, and lovers, before our jobs, money, and social status, even before our religions, dogmas, and beliefs. I'm afraid to move off this spot here, but I want to finish this. So I'm afraid to move off here, but stay if you can. In the end, we will need to fall back on the faith that we are powerful spiritual beings who will exist long after our bodies cease to be, and our bank accounts are divided up by relatives and creditors. Life can be hard and scary at times, but all fear and pain are caused solely by the belief that things in this world can bring us peace. It is the attachment to things that cause suffering. It is the attachment to things that cause suffering. It is the letting go of these attachments that guides us safely along our path, helping us to realize the power of our shoes. And eventually it brings us home. Okay, I love the next chapter. Oh my God, so good. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna kind of lift up into my elbow so I can lift off of this. We're gonna leave that pressure in there. I don't know how much you were able to put in there. It depends on how much, once you get into it, it's to break up a lot of it. And another good spot is right here underneath the knee. So I'm gonna grab my circle here, and I'm still landing on my side, right? And I like the ones where it has the smaller nubs for this portion. And I'm just gonna slide it, look at my knee crease here. I'm just gonna slide it under my knee crease, but I have to do it at an angle. And the reason is because when I get up and roll onto it, it's kind of at an angle. So I'm right outside. Here's my knee. I'm right outside of it. There's this bony matter. Okay, so the IT band, I believe it touches down there, if I can remember it. I have the worst memory when it comes to naming things. So anatomy has sucked for me because Latin, are you kidding me? All right, so let's push into the left foot of the foot that's behind you and then lift up. Now I turn my hips, so my hips are framed towards, obviously, you. I'm not up to the sky where my hips are framed up. So I'm turned to the side as best I can so I can turn down onto that knee. And then most of my weight is out of it. I'm rolling in there pretty good. And you should find it. It's right where you think it's the outside of your thigh. It's not. So there's a little connection in there, and that's what we're going to get into. Oh, I mean, it is your outside. It's your abduction muscles, and also, bands and ligaments and tendons in there. All right, so we just are right on that outside little spot, and you should be able to feel it. It's pretty intense, and it releases a lot of that hip. All right, you don't want to stay there too long, too, because these things could actually give you a little bit of a bruise. All right, so now that I do that, I'm going to turn, and I'm just going to place this off to the side and turn towards the direction that I was. So now I'm in tabletop position, and if you notice, my hands are directly under the shoulders and under the hips, not way up out in front, right? I'm not like this. All these push-ups that I see sometimes. What in the world's going on over there? All right, so bring your hands back and walk your knees up. Like I didn't know any better. That's how I did them, okay? That's fine. All right, so now here we're going to take the right leg back. So I'm going to start with the right because I want to challenge this right hip to stay up. And then this right hand is going to have to do the work of the holding it up. So I'm going to lift the leg nice and tall, push into that arm really, really strong. You can stay on this hand and onto the fingertips, or if you can, you're going to lift it up. This one I'm going to lift it and I'm going to put it on my back. Okay, so I'm on a neutral shoulder. If my wrist gets really achy, it's because you have a lot of air energy in there and your wrists are not as strong as the pittas or the knuckles. So you could come up to spider fingers, but you got to get your fingers strong. That's the catch. Or you can make a fake fist, like you're holding a weight, and you can balance on the top of those knuckles. Okay, they will get stronger and we're not here forever. So buck it up. All right, so now you're here pushing the ground away. You're lifting that right hip, lengthen the neck, and you just take a few deep breaths. Now, the goal would be to eventually close the eyes so you no longer need them, and then just become very, very still. Let's take at least one more breath from you. Let the body shake, do whatever it needs to do. And then we're going to bring that knee back down to the mat. Okay, so this hand comes down too. Now grab the roller, and it's going to go in front of the right knee. not in front of both, just in front of the right, okay? So it's in front of the right. I have the smaller nubs again here. And then I'm going to just kind of roll forward. See how it's rolling with me? It's okay. Just going to push it back in there. Just want it down towards my knee more. And then come down to the elbows. So now I'm going to be in like a forearm plank position. Tuck the toes and bring the legs up, okay? This one's free. This one's on the circle. So now when we do that, we're going to lift the one that's on the circle up, and the one that's on the floor, you're going to use it to roll forward to back. So now you're on the quadricep here, just rolling forward to back onto that quadricep. What's nice is it kind of looks like you're making out with your roller here, turning to face it and lifting that knee up a little bit and just rolling inside. But grabbing the circle and pulling it up is helpful, so it's on an angle. So just so you guys can see me on that side, let's say it's the other foot, right? So I was rolling back and forth. I dropped right to that side, and then I pulled it up so that I could roll my adductor in there, my inner thigh muscle. And that little guy can be kind of sore in there, okay? But we're on the right side. So here I'm going to go back over to this side. And I call this one loving the roller. You love it. All right, so we're just rolling inside. I had pulled my inner groin, so boy, that's a little tender in there. So you can also do the thigh again. Go right back if you're like, now the thigh quadricep, think quad, 4. So you could roll a little bit to the side and then roll. You could roll a little bit more. You could go all the way to the side and step behind you, and that's going to get, so that's going to get back into those other parts. Again, if you want to stay on the quadricep, we're going to stay face down with your hips. If it's too intense altogether, place it right in front of both of your knees, and then you can use it to glide on both of them. But we haven't done that other side yet to loosen it up a little bit in the hips, so just going to be mindful of that. All right, just a couple more rolls here. And then we're going to come down to our belly. Let's make sure that I got us where we're at. So I'm just going to roll this down. A couple more rolls, and then you're coming down to your belly. So once you get down to your belly, stay where you are. You're facing the back. I'm simply going to turn so you can see my right side. So you have your roller. You're on your right side, and we're going to lift up the right arm. If you noticed, I took this. It's straight in front of me, and I pulled it back so it's at an angle. That way, when I lift and I put my arm onto it, it can go right into it. Now, this is where the nubs also are helpful. Go to the little ones. Now, once I'm in that ball socket, and I'm going to go facing you now. Someone said you look like a break dancer doing this. I don't know what I look like doing this. Idiot, maybe. All right, so here you go. And so now it's like that. See how there's no space in there? I'm not way back up here. I'm right into that armpit. Okay, so here where I'm dealing with the anterior, the medial, and the posterior. I'm going to roll forward, and I'm going to get right into where it's my chest. And then, oh, I already feel it. That feels really good there. That's where I'm going to stop. So now we're going back to breathing. If you're like, I don't feel it, you can just move your body forward and back and roll until you find a spot, and then you can get in there. The hand can be down. It can be lifted for more intensity, and you can push and roll just a little bit. It could feel like the shoulder's falling asleep. That's not unusual here to feel that. So just kind of stay there and breathe. Okay, so there you are, right? This is a really good chapter. This is probably also happening right now. It's so funny. We'll pick it up. So the next chapter is called The Field of Poppies. Do you remember in the Yellow Brick Road when they were like, we're determined and we're going to go do, I forget if they were on their way to the witch's castle, if they were back on the Yellow Brick Road. And they were like, look, poppies. Look how beautiful the poppies are. And then they laid down in them and they were wasted in the poppies. That's what was happening in there. So if you think poppies, what drug comes from poppies? Okay, now my beauty, something with poison in it, I think. With poison in it, but attractive to the eye and soothing to the smell. Poppies. Poppies will put them to sleep. Look at it to the west. All right, so we can choose to abandon our false idols at any time. But once we have involved ourselves with them, it becomes more difficult to let them go. The ego knows when something is a good piece of bait and will use any addiction to put us to sleep, like heroin or anything from TV. They can lead us off track. So don't get me wrong, TV has the potential to be a wonderful medium, but being mindful of our compulsions and keeping them in check is one of the key ways to keep tact in our shoes. Okay, so you don't want to overdo it here because your arm is probably falling asleep at this point. And you're probably wondering what the heck's going on. So I just kind of want to get into here as we're rolling around. Now just lift up off of it because you don't want to go too deep. You just really don't want to mess around there too much. Let's see if I can show you based on this without tearing my shirt open. Okay, so we can see this is where we were. We were into the armpit crease here. Now I'd like to get us into this front portion of the shoulder, but also these pec muscles that also are connected to them. So if I take this circle and I want to use the smaller nubs and I put a tennis ball on it, right? I can put that and line it up with my pec, my chest, okay? And then I can extend that arm back out. So if you get a massage, for instance, and it's difficult for them to massage your chest, the pecs, because it gets really close to the breast on women, and it's like, it just feels awkward. Men, I don't know how it would feel for you because I'm not a man, obviously. So I'd have to ask your feedback on that. But this is one way that you can kind of get in there without jumping out of your skin, if you will. It's like massaging your quadriceps. Like if you were to get a massage, you know, then massaging your quadricep is really difficult. You see how I kind of dug right into there at the upper portion of the chest? And it's anywhere leading that into the pec, into the arm. So those attachments can get really, really strained, all right? So that's where we are, and I want you just to play around using this, and I'll see if I can get dressed without tearing my shirt. Okay. So you're right on the pec, and I'm reading to you. So you're on your pec, stretching it out. Let's continue to do that. You're here for another like 5 to 10 breaths as well, and then we move on. So again, these are the words of Darren Main, and he says, for me, there's no such thing as moderation when it comes to nicotine. I have friends who have a cigarette now and then, and they're fine, but I am not one of them. I was a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and I don't doubt that I would be again if I took even one puff. Okay, one puff. My hair is falling out. I do this all day long. On a very deep level, I believed that cigarettes were my best friend. They were there when I was hungry, when I was full, after sex. They were there when I was lonely. They were there when I was sad. They were there when I was happy. If only I had a few dollars in my pocket, I would have chosen a pack of smokes over food. They came before all else, and they most certainly came before my spiritual life. As we all know, smoking doesn't solve any problems, big or small. Cigarettes give us a temporary sense of reprieve at best, but in the long run, they fail us. In many cases, they do more than fail us. They destroy our health, deadens our senses, creates problems far bigger than the ones that we were trying to avoid. They are, for many, poppies that induce sleep and prevent entrance to the Emerald City. But cigarettes is just one example. The obvious others are drugs, alcohol, food, but the list is endless. We have merely to look around at the things people do mindlessly to see that the ego can turn almost anything into a poppy. Shopping, work, internet chat rooms, and that's how old this is. Internet chat rooms, right? Internet chat rooms and television are a bit less obvious. No, that's probably where we're headed since he's written this, but just as insidious. So I want to say those are probably even more so like gambling, online gambling, shopping, and things like that. Incessive Instagramming, perhaps, incessive judgment on your social media. Those are all things that are just poppies. You know what I mean? So you can kind of look at this and you almost, once you see it, you're not upset with people anymore. You're just like, those are those poppies. All right. So you can only, again, do so much here on the pecs before your pecs are like, you better stop this. I'm getting mad at you. So we're going to take that off, right? And we're just going to come back up into our tabletop. So you're facing, right, one way, whatever's comfortable. I need you to be able to see this. So I'm back to tabletop and I want my medial deltoid. So whenever I lift something up, grab anything, pick up bags, I'm probably using mostly my medial deltoid. That's where most of my growth is. So I'm back to the same side as working my right, and I'm just simply placing my shoulder on top of that. Do you see it? Here's the bone, here's the shoulder. Now that I got my medial deltoid, I'm rolling back and forth. Now I'm going to go back into this direction here. So we're tabletop. This is exactly what you should look like. I place my shoulder onto it. I do the ball socket. I don't know why, because I'm a fitness person. And then lift up. And then we're rolling up and over the shoulder. This feels really good. So up and over the shoulder. You don't have to do it long though. Just a few of these is going to be plenty deep. So up and down onto there. Oh, all right. Now the rear deltoid is a doozy too. Do that a few times. You don't want to overdo it. I'm going to go back up and over this. And then once I get my arm onto it, there's no space, but I'm leaning onto my glute a little bit. So I'm going to straighten out the leg that's closest to the ground or closest to the arm that's on this, the same side as the arm that's on it, and then use your back leg as the brake to lift up, and then you're going to do gentle rolls here. You'll only do a couple because we'll get into it deeper with the ball. So just a couple rolls to activate it. And then from there, if you want to go deeper, I place the tennis ball. And this tennis ball can be on the ground too if you didn't have a roller. And then I'm going to have to hold it though because it's going to get swirly. And I just want to be really careful on how much pressure I'm going. And that's it. I'm holding it right here. I can lift up a little bit. I can press into it a little bit. All right, so that's your rear deltoid, and anywhere you pretty much go on that, it's going to feel good. I would say going all the way down into where this is the armpit here. So we want to get right through here and right to the back, right? Those are going to be tender. I don't care who you are, it's going to be tender in your body. Okay. The only way to get these addictions under control is to withdraw from them altogether. Oh, that sucks. If you give your wicked witch an inch, she will have you. Getting the ego under control is a lot like training a puppy. I'm not reading this. Like a puppy, the ego wants your attention. It may do quiet and gentle things like licking your face, or it may chew up your favorite chair. But either way, the ego demands that you pay attention to it at all times. All right, let's finish that up. I don't want to hear too long. So you don't want to root and toot around into the fascia for too long. You can actually bruise the tissue, so you're going to be careful. So we're back into the rear deltoid. And I believe that is what brings us to our back. So as you roll to your back now, you're going to simply roll back, and our feet are on the floor. All right. And then here we are back in bridge. So I'm going to take the roller this time. If you have a block, it will work. If you have none, just do it without. Place it between the thighs and hold on to it. That's it. And your body will do what it needs to do holding on to it. Lift the hips back up. I'm going to lock my shoulders in and just hold on to this ball. So I'm squeezing in. I'm asking my adduction muscles to kind of go in because it kind of helps to moderate how much the glute activity I've got. Place all the weight now into the four corners of the feet. Now we're just going to go down and up a few times. Just down and up. Try to get a little bit higher each time you come up. Maybe even walk your heels back a little bit each time so that you get a little bit more depth. On the next one, we're going to hold our lift, hold it up, and then take the circle out. Slide it underneath where it goes right into the lower back tailbone area. And you can probably see right where that is, right? So it's on more my tail, not my lower back. This is my lower back. This is my tail. It's more bony. Do you see that? This is my lower back. It's not on my lower back. So it's really bony. It's like firm. I'm like, oh, I can stay here forever. Honestly, it's neutral. Then if you want to layer up, we're going to extend one leg out at a time. And this is, you can see this on your back. It's important that you not get it onto your lower back. And then we're straight. Now, once we're straight, the toes fall out to the sides. The arms are out to the side too. This is a pretty deep back bend. If I had you on your belly doing this, lifting your arms and your legs, you would find it challenging. You wouldn't probably be able to stay more than 5 breaths. Most people, it's really, really too much. Now, so this is a circle, so you can roll it. And most of the people, if they're not able to breathe or something feels wrong in the spine, they usually need to move it down a little bit. Usually up is not it, because being here on this does not feel good. I would really suggest not doing that. So I'm going to go down further, again on the bony area of the tail. Legs will strengthen out, lengthen out, arms are to the side. All right, now bring your chin down because the back of your neck is also getting substantial length. If it's too intense, just place the feet back onto the floor and then remove the circle if you'd like. All right, friends, we're here for a good 5 to 10 breaths. And this is a really good back bend, so I'm staying in it. I think I can read here. We'll see. Should you begin training your ego, it will resist in much the same way a puppy might.
But in time, it will learn that a firm boundary has been set and there is no room for negotiation in these areas. Now, if, while you are training a puppy, you give it mixed signals by not being consistent in your commands, you will never train it in anything. For example, if you are trying to teach the puppy not to beg at the table, and then you even once give it and offer a scrap of food, that puppy will never give up. It will remember the one time you gave in, rather than the 100 or so times that you didn't. You're like, oh, it's okay. If you had a puppy, you're like, it's true. You can only do it once. Or if you're trying to get the baby to sleep through the night for those with small children. Remember that. So hard. Okay, friends, we got our last couple breaths now. And to move out of the pose, we're going to place the feet back into the floor so that we can put the weight back into the feet. And then once the weight's back into the feet, lift the hips up. Let's slide the hips down. All right, let's move the circle off to the side momentarily. Walk your feet together. Let the knees open out to the side. So now we're back to Supta Baddha Konasana. Do you remember where we were when we started? Let's place the right hand below the belly, set in the center of the chest, just to reconnect to our breath and our bodies. Eyes are closed. We'll take 2 more breaths here. Slowly bring your knees now back towards each other. Let's walk the feet back. And as the feet walk back, the hands come out to the sides again. We're going to exhale, lift to bridge. From bridge, hold your bridge, and we'll take just a couple more breaths as I just check back in to make sure I know where we are. Good. From here, we're going to take this block back. So you're in bridge. You're going to need your block. So if you need to come down, you can come down and grab the block. We are going to meet down onto the floor. The block goes underneath the left foot now, or if you don't have one, it just stays into your bridge position. Then from here, we lift up. All right, so now we're on our block, our hips are lifted, and now we're just breathing. Now, once you're up, you can simply move with the breath, right? So down and up. The interesting concept with this is the breaths are different for fitness and yoga. So this particular movement, we probably breathe in going up and then down. But since we're moving more on a fitness capacity, we're going to exhale during the exertion, which in this case would be when we lift. So we'd exhale here when we lift, and we're going to inhale when we come down. Now, as you're exhaling and lifting, notice the 4 corners of the feet and see if you can press down to the big toe in the middle arch of that foot to get a little bit more weight to the inside of the foot, which naturally the foot puts weight to the outside edge of it, of course, as you're running like a footprint. On the next one, we can hold it up, or you can take a few more, whatever feels good. Just see if you can get the height a little bit taller. Maybe walk your shoulder blades down, and then we'll hold. We're going to place the weight into the foot that's on the block, or the left foot as the right foot goes on top of it. Then that leg will go to the sky, and when you get it there, we will lower all the way down. So the glute and the heel, and then all the way up. And let's just do that a few times. So down and up. All right, now let's try to hold the next one up. Okay, just hold it up now for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Set the foot onto the floor. Good. Now take the other foot that you just worked and cross it over the knee, and then drop the knee. Now push the hips back up, and let's hold. So we're trying to release some of that agitation and that energy that mounts in that ball socket of the hip. Let's take calm and breathe. It's going to feel a little different for everybody. Some it'll feel fairly too. Now to go deeper, we just lower the hips, 1, and then pop that knee up. Once the knee is up, push that other knee away. So the left knee away. Your chin may have lifted, so you're going to bring it down. Maybe grab the hamstring. And then from there, if you're going deeper, we're going to relax the foot and grab the shin bone. Either of those will be fine as you slowly now return to your back. Now you're here for a bit, so whatever position you were in, it's fine. Just hold on to it and do the best you can there. Hold that figure 4. Hold that figure 4. Okay.
Now, if while you're, let's see here, the field of the poppy scenes can teach us a lot in regards to our own addictions. First, just because the body and the soul might be asking, or might be taking a nap, doesn't mean that our brain and our heart have decided checked out as well. Like the Oz story, we often realize that we are being drugged and we feel heartache over it. But that doesn't seem to be enough to pull us out. Ultimately, it is our spirit that needs to pull back to our path. How many of us can really argue with the idea that too much TV is not healthy, or that smoking is unhealthy? Even people steeped in an addiction would agree. Addiction is not a mental problem or a physical dependency. It's spiritual in nature, and its solution must be spiritual as well. Okay, falling asleep in our own personal field of poppies is not something that most of us are really in denial about. Sure, for a time it's comforting to say it's not a problem and that it's no big deal. But in our brain and in our heart, we know that we are deadening ourselves. The solution is a spiritual one. You're almost done. Can you take just a few more breaths here? This is a really good release on that hip. There's so many emotions, especially on this topic. I got to tell you, that's where they're held in our physical bodies, is in the hips. Because that's where spiritually it lines up with those emotions. Those are all the self-serving, egocentrical ones are right here in Svadhisthana, located between the hip bones. The solution is a spiritual one, just as it took the blessing of the good witch to pull Dorothy out of her sleep. It takes a blessing of our spirit to wake us from the addiction. But like Dorothy, both our brain and our hearts need to ask for help first. Inviting our spirit to heal us is the same as becoming willing in the 12 steps. We become like Abraham offering his son Isaac up to God, trusting that in letting go of what we most cherish, we will find transcendence, liberation, and a direct experience of the divine. All right, friends. All right, so now you're in figure 4. You should be done at this now, slowly lowering it. And then we're going to bring that knee up, the one that you just stretched, straighten the other one out. We're going to grab this knee. I'm going to take my opposite thumb out, and this is called wind removing because it's compression to the digestive system. Elbows are not out, they're in by my body. And you're using the strength of the biceps and the fingertips to draw the knee towards the armpit crease. One day it will go in. But again, it's against the side, it's against your ribs. So you want to hold here. Now bring the chin down so your entire spine is flat to the floor. Let's stay here. We're almost done. Like Abraham, we are not asked to sacrifice anything, though it may appear that way initially. The only thing our spirit asks us to give up is our pain, ignorance, fear, suffering. All other things are restored and renewed as our spirit wakes up gently from the spell. All right, so now that you're in wind removing, we're going to release that foot back onto the floor, bring the other one back up, and then we're going to need to grab our balls. You may need 2 and 1. 1 is going to work deeper. If you have it to where 1 is just unbearable, well, then we would put 2 under. I haven't yet in my experience have that. So we're going to use the 1 again, lifting the hips up. I'm going to slide it this time under the left glute. So before I did it my right butt cheek, now I'm under my left. Once I'm under my left, then I can straighten the same leg out that's under the glute. My right leg is the one driving the car. So more weight is less pressure in the ball, less weight in the foot, more pressure in the ball. I'm moving it so that eventually my butt's in your face or you're turning towards your left. And I'm going to turn that way for you too. So stay where you're at. And then I'm going to come back. All right, so here we are, right? So we've got this under the glute, left leg is straight. And then we're making funny faces and breathing. Insects and monkeys. I love this one too. Oh my gosh, I say it about every chapter. So they want my broom, huh? Well, they'll need a mop to clean up what's left of them after I'm done. As we've already discussed, the Wicked Witch is part of the mind. She does not exist outside
and therefore has no power to affect our external lives unless we give her that power. The darkness we experience in the world is but a shadow of the darkness that exists in our individual and collective minds. This darkness needs to be maintained and guarded by the witch, or the immense power that the spirit emanates would dispel her darkness without effort or consequence. Move the ball. Oh, this is my bad side. Oh. Okay. So, for this reason, the wicked witch has gathered together an army that wages a war inside of our heads. They are the demons that keep us either paralyzed with fear or running for our lives. And she uses these things to ensure our obedience and, when possible, to conquer new territory. Move the ball. Slide it anywhere. Try it. Go towards the outside of your butt, towards your hip. Trust me, it's going to be tight. So this army is represented. Do you remember this in the movie? These guys were terrifying. It's almost like you forget about them. So this army is represented by the winged monkeys. Remember when she sends them off to go find them, and they're beeping around down the trail? Okay, so the Winkies, Balm, and the mysterious insects each represent a different line of her defense system. We need to confront these three things before we can really dissolve our belief system that is represented by the Wicked Witch herself. Move the ball. No. Okay. The insects don't have a huge part in the movie, and they don't exist at all in the book. In fact, if I had not watched the film a handful of times in preparation for the book, I would have likely missed the reference. During the scene where the witch sends out the winged monkey to retrieve Dorothy, she says, "Send the little insects on ahead to take the fight out of them." Okay, so the insects represent the day-to-day concerns that plague our minds, and they keep us distracted. Paying the rent, contending with bills, fears about retirement, wondering just how the children will find their way through college. All drain our energy and take the fight out of us. These concerns seem so real and basic to our survival that it's rare that the witch ever needs to move beyond even these basic platoon, right? The rat wheel, I call that. So in the movie, Out on a Limb, which I haven't seen this happen, I'm surprised I haven't after I've read this book, documents the actress Shirley MacLaine's spiritual awakening. She's talking with a friend about her feeling that there's something missing. Frustrated, her friend says, "What could possibly be missing? Tell the man who drives the Wonder Bread truck with 4 kids to feed that you haven't got it all." Shirley tries to explain that it's not fame, money, or success she's referring to, but a vague sense that there's something more to life. And there's got to be more. Maybe I realized it because I have so much. All right, so we need to move the ball again, and we're getting closer now. You can kind of see it as it's popping out to the outside of my hip, which is the top portion of my glute. There's a really big pressure point that's located kind of right up there. So if you can kind of get your way towards it, it would be lovely to release into the lower back. Okay, it is death by 1,000 cuts. The insects don't take us down in one big hit, but rather through a series of little hits that keep us distracted from the spiritual issues that underlie. All right, so when I'm here, right, I've lifted all the way up. So wherever we are, we're going to be eventually to our side. And if you remember, we just simply took the ball out and then we shoved it underneath the hip from the front. So here's my hip, and I just want to make sure that you see I put it from the front, because if it's too far back, we're going to be on the glute and that pressure point versus on this little nook here, right on the outside of that hip, right? So we're going to kind of get it to the front. Then we're going to get to the IT inserts down here by the knee. Okay. The winged monkeys are her second defense. So the monkeys are the big things that attack us. They are the deep, dark secrets from our past that no one wants to see. They are the things that tear apart our intellect and shut down our heart. Dirty little secrets from our past give the monkeys their wings, and deep-seated guilt and shame give them flight. These demons are born in the darkness of our subconscious, and they exist because of our willingness to look at them. I think I should repeat that. These demons are born in the darkness of our subconscious, and they exist because of our unwillingness to look at them. That's it, just to look at them. That's why they exist. We need only to fearlessly examine them to dispel their power.
All right, so now we're on the front here, right? So we're gonna bend both knees and they're stacked. You wanna make sure you're in there really good. And then you also wanna make sure you're rolled back enough on it that you feel something in there. So you might have to move it around a little bit to get in there. I can feel it, it's right there. Okay, you can see it's visible to the front. I don't know that, you'd probably be able to see it from the back. And then we're just gonna lift that knee up, and you'll notice my feet are still together here. Some will only lift it a little bit, and then we'll kind of get it up maybe eventually towards 12 o'clock, which 12 o'clock is here for me. I'm not quite there. This would be 12 o'clock all the way up. So I'm more down here. So we're gonna take a few breaths here, and then we'll lower it and lift it a little bit higher, okay? Early on in my spiritual journey, I was actively involved in a 12-step program. So when it came time to do my 4th and 5th steps, I encountered the winged monkeys for the first time. This was a most intense experience for me because I had been harboring such guilt for the things that I had done. I really thought that I was a bad person, and the idea of going within and talking about these things was overwhelming. As with most change in my life, it took certain amounts of pain before I was ready to move forward with these steps. I was terrified. All right, lower your knee, we're gonna go down. All right, now we're gonna lift it up one more time, and this time it's gonna go as high as you can manage, but not past 12 o'clock. Okay. Okay, so I was ready to move forward with these steps, but I was terrified. I began to write out my 4th step, and I remembered my hands shaking. Oh my God, I cried last time I read this out loud. Just thinking about it, this is a good one. I began to write out my 4 steps, and I remember my hands shaking because I was so nervous. I was so moved by this, you guys, I'm sorry. I couldn't even think about what my 5th step would be like. I managed to get it out. Every last secret I could think of. I know how this goes, I'm sorry. Every last secret I could think of. And then I went to my sponsor's house. And I prepared to share all my dirt with him. And then to my surprise, he stopped me. And then he shared his 5th step with me. At first I thought he was not clear on the concept. And then I later realized that he was putting my mind at ease. And as I listened to him, I realized that there was nothing that he had done that changed who he was to me. His dirt contributed to his own willingness to forget his identity, but only for as long as he was willing to keep things locked away in the darkness corners of his mind. All right, let's drop before you're paralyzed from this. All right, let's lift up. Let's move that out. All right, I'm going to stop there. The power of that just beyond words for me. I'm sorry. Can you imagine everything he did to prepare for that? That guy took it and whipped out his own dirt and just read his own dirt to him. It had no power anymore for him. You see, giving air to it. So do you see I'm sliding this under? It's already at an angle. The angle's going back towards my back ankle so that when I go onto it, it kind of fits into this nub. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it to the small one. So my right foot or my back foot is the brake. I'm going to lift up now. And now I'm in that dub. And I'm going to turn my hips towards the side. So they're framed to the side so that I can get right into that little space. Once again, it's right here. I can see that, I think. And there's no muscle in there. It's just all kind of tendons and bone, right? So when you get in there, you can go, oh yeah. And then you're going to go right up to where you perceive the muscle to be. And that's where it inserts. And that's where we want to get it. So right there. Right there. Oh, it's good stuff. Not here long, remember, not here long. And then we turn, and then we roll towards tabletop. And then when we get there, we just place the knees and the hands onto the floor. Line up your body. Now we're under the left leg, so I'm taking it under my left side this time. I don't care which way you're facing, you're just on your other leg. Lowering down to the elbows and then tucking the toes. So now I'm not on my right leg, I'm just on my left. I'm going to lift this back one up and use my front leg to roll on the quadricep. You can roll to the outside of it. You can roll to the inside of it by bending the knee. Okay? So we're going to be here for a little bit as you're rolling around your quadricep. So continue to roll. And then we'll see if we can finish up our chapter. When he finished, I shared my list with him. And it was such a relief. The winged monkeys of my mind became timid and shy, for they no longer had the power to terrorize me and cripple me with fear. The light of awareness once again dispelled the shadow of my mind.
The Winkies are her third and final line of defense. Oh God, this is terrifying too. When I was a little kid, these guys. The Winkies are the soldiers that guard the castle, and they chat, oh, wee, oh, oh. The Winkies represent the part of our psyche that exists in a pure state of fear and torment. The other levels of our defense, the insects and the monkeys, have discernible events and characteristics associated with them. But the Winkies, they exist in a state of pure fear. They are imprisoned in a witch's castle, and they can never leave. So the fear they represent has to do with our basic fear of home. You see, the Winkies are much like the Munchkins who were enslaved by the Witch of the East. They were good folks who existed in a peaceful state until they were enslaved. They didn't like their behavior, but they didn't seem to have any choice. So the mindless chanting was all they felt capable of. This is what happens to most of us when we enter the witch's castle. The part of us that feels trapped by her spells stands before us and fills our minds with this droning chant to the ego. And there is no one thing with which to identify our fear, but it's real. Perhaps it is because we are so close to transcendence that we want to recoil in fear. All right, so we're on the left leg, right? We were doing this with the circle, and we're going to try to see if we can do both for just a moment. We want to finish on both legs. So I'm placing it in front of both knees, in which time both of my legs are up, okay? And now I'm just rolling. This one's kind of fun, and there's not as much pressure in the thighs, so you can kind of go back and all the way up. Woo! Take off. All right, and then from here, we drop. You don't do that too long. You just drop, and then we place this at an angle with small nubs, and it goes under my left armpit now. So here I am, and here you are. Now, what you'll notice here is that if you can lift, so I got it in the armpit, see up here, space, pull it back at an angle so there's no space. I sometimes think about if you're like grabbing your paper and you're putting it on your arm, okay? Like we do that, right? It's right here. So there we go. And then if you have your elbow down, it's passive. If I lift it up, I can press into it. It's more active. And I'm rolling right into my chest, if you will. Remember, we want to start loosening this up. We're rolling it out like a rolling pin, and then we're going to go into the pec and then the shoulder. Okay. There is nothing logical about this level of our ego's defense. It is fear of the known, and it's fear of the unknown. It's fear of God. It's fear that maybe there is no God. It's a fear of vulnerability. It's a fear of our power. To be surrounded by the witch's henchmen is the most crippling feeling. It is, in the witch's words, being trapped like mice. So there's no easy way to describe this experience. I suspect it's what people's experience when they have a nervous breakdown, or that Jesus had just before his death on the cross. There is no one thing that is pushing us to our knees. Simply the realization that everything can be snatched from our grasp. And interestingly, this can be a very powerful and decisive moment in our growth. By having everything taken from us, all means of psychological rationalization removed from the realm of possibility, we have this opportunity to surrender to the power of the Spirit. And in that surrender, we have the opportunity to win our freedom. All right, guys, so now we're going to pause here for a second. I got one little tiny task for this one. We're going to get into the pack. So now I'm going to take this, and it's more framed up with the ball now on top of it. Then I line it up with my pack. I feel my shirt tearing when I'm doing this. So let me put my clothes on here. All right, so I'm going to line it up. Here we go, with the pack on top. So there we go. And then set it in there. We can see that it's up high. And then anywhere around in there, right? It's using that on the breast tissue. It's on the muscle. For women, it would just be above the boob. Men, they usually work out chest a little bit more. So those muscles, you're going to feel it almost anywhere you put it. All right, let's just stay there now and hold. And you're going to move this around several times, please. In the end, it is the Winkies who give Dorothy the broom. Remember, they saved her. In the end, they are her allies. So these, the darkest demons in our mind, turn out to be our most valued allies in the long run. And it happens when we allow ourselves to come face to face with the witch herself. Transcending the ego is the goal of any spiritual path, though it may be described in different ways. Whatever the process is called, it's always the same internal experience. It is the return to oneness. It is an understanding that all things emanate from one source and that this source is where an individual's value and power originate. Okay, so now we're rooting and tooting and moving this around. You should have done it several times while I was reading to you, right? And then we can come out of here. And then we move into, make sure you've also got about as much time onto this as possible. And then we can also move into the medial. When you turn to the medials, you can see I just leaned on it, placed my shoulder here, and now I'm just moving forward to that. And then you can kind of go a little bit more forward, although be careful because the anterior is going to be way more tricky. And then to go back into the anterior pec, you can go back up over it and press into this. But you need to kind of turn it to an angle a little bit to better fit into where that arm turns into the pec. So you're kind of a little bit of an angle. Then to go into the rear deltoid, we turn a little bit back and add an angle the other way to roll into it. To get into the rear deltoid, so you guys are kind of playing here a little bit now as you go through all these muscles. I'm going to place that circle back on there. I'm going to hold it so it doesn't slide away, and then just line it up the back of the arm and place back there. And that's going to be kind of deep, and that feels lovely. Really releases a lot of tension that gets built around that ball and socket. So a lot of stress for us we put into the neck, into the trapezius, right, which will lead into the traps, into the rhomboids. In between here, traps, you got your neck, you got your bands on the side of the neck. It's going to lead into the shoulder, rear deltoid, right? So we've got these, and then the deltoid leads into the pecs. So all of this stuff is going to be kind of tight as a unit, if you will. And as we root and toot around in there, we release those points. We can let some of that trapped energy in there out. So that energy is going to get trapped, especially around the ball socket of the hip and then the shoulder. You see? All right, let's just stay there and breathe while I get dressed. All right, so make sure you definitely move this around a couple times, you know, so that you're not in the same spot. That is super important. Super important. Okay, so where are we here? Dorothy's experience of transcending the ego is symbolized in the melting of the Wicked Witch. In Oz terminology, liquidation and transcendence are synonymous. Throughout the story, the witch terrorizes Dorothy. She threatens her and her friends and always makes a dramatic entrance and exit. Dorothy has to stand up to the witch to dissolve her power. So in our lives, we have the same challenge that faced Dorothy. The Wicked Witch who terrorized our mind gets her power from our fear. It doesn't matter what form the fear takes. She grows in strength every time we step away from the edge of the unknown. Her nails grow longer, sharper every time we settle for the status quo. Her cackle gets louder and more nerve-splitting every time we choose ignorance over wisdom. And there are two kinds of fear. One is self-preservation, put into our psyche by our spirit, because it tells us when to get out of the situation. It is that part of us that, in a sixth sense sort of way, knows when we are in danger. There's countless stories of how people have been mugged, saying that in hindsight they knew something was wrong. This happens to all of us. You're like, I should have listened to that. So hair standing in the back of the head. You're about ready to go in the alley. Don't go in the alley. Okay. So the other kind of fear is the ego, though. Okay. The ego is not a rational fear, but rather an illogical paranoia that keeps us stuck in our pain and suffering. It is this ego fear that prevents us from going home or even making life in Oz all that it can be. As long as we submit to this fear, we will be slaves to the Wicked Witch. She knows it. And she will stop at nothing to make sure that we don't examine her fear tactics too closely, because once we do, we will see that there's nothing there. Our spirit has the sole goal of getting us home with a minimal amount of suffering. All right, so we've got our shoulders. I think we got that all done. So we completed here. So how we were on a rear deltoid, and I believe that's how we ended. You ended with the circle rolling here, and then we turn one final time and roll to our backs. So we started the class with this kind of at the top of at the back, and we're going to do one last roll. So when I get to the top of my back, I'm simply going to roll up and down the upper portion. If I can let my elbows open out, my arms open, the chest open, you might even feel some of those vertebrae pop back into place. Little tiny bumps. And then from here, I'm going to drop my hips, push my elbows into the floor, lift up.
And then from there, slide it back for one more, kind of a fish variation. It's a fish pose. So when you see it, it'll line up at the back of my neck here, and then the front of my head will come off. If it bothers you, just place the whole head onto the circle so that nothing is falling back. And again, this should feel fairly accessible here. The arms are now open, the feet are now open. I want you to stay here for about 5 minutes. Once again, now we're back into the heart chakra, and I'd like you to notice if this takes a different type of a sound for you. Suffering is of the ego. And when we are experiencing pain or discomfort, you can be sure we are not following the counsel of spirit. This is not to say that when we follow the spirit, we will not encounter difficult and painful situations, because we most certainly will. For our spirit leads us to them so that we can walk through the door and be through with it all together. All right, now from here, we're coming off of the circle. So the knees need to come back together, the tube, whatever. And then they're going to press the feet into the floor as you lift up. I'm just going to come up now. All right, now take this out to the side. Move back down onto your spine, and then lift your hips back up for bridge. Slide it underneath the bony tailbone area again. So there it goes. So this is my lower back. It's not there. It's below it. Then once it's on the bony area, then we can straighten the legs out one at a time and move into this back bend with your arms out. Now, once you're in position now, draw the chin towards the chest. Don't turn your neck left and right. Just stay here and breathe. The adrenals now are lifted, and the cortisol and adrenaline levels are beginning to kind of balance out. The next sound that you're going to hear is going to be that of the hips, which is typically a very soothing sound. It's usually wildly accepted because of how much we are connected to this space in our physical bodies already. So just notice how you feel. Keep your eyes closed, and you'll be taking about another 10 breaths here. The fear that the ego creates to keep us in bondage is also the gate that leads us to the lawns of heaven. At some point, we need to walk through that fear. We need to go through the uncomfortable. We need to visit the awkward and the undesirable. The witch is like an axe-wielding maniac, or so we believe.
The acts that she uses to chase us is our fear and pain, fear of the unknown, and our fear of adversity. When we walk headlong into these things, liberation comes and our act becomes a bouquet of flowers. It is this fear that radiates out into our lives and affects everything that we do. From the addictions and the obsessions from which sabotage much of what we do, to outright fear of some monster that has numerous arms, each representing things like the IRS, job security, health, and relationships. For most of us, it is fear rather than faith that guides our decisions. Many don't even see things as a choice. They think it's a given that you will be repelled by your spouse and eventually divorce, hate your job, struggle to pay the bills. A 1-week vacation each year is the only thing some people have to look forward to. And sadly, few question this way of life. Now slowly lift up your hips, and so that you're off of your
Tube. Slide the tube out from under your body and place it off to the side. And then from here, we're going to lengthen the legs out and flip the palms up to the sky and take Shavasana pose. Now from here, just gently roll the shoulders back, bring the chin down and close your eyes.
And as you move into this final space of rest, allow the sound of my voice to take you through, and we'll finish with our last little sounds of the sound. My father called me one Sunday morning, and it was a beautiful day. I was on my way to the beach. We had a nice conversation about our lives, and I shared with him how happy that I was with my work and with my life in general. And then he said, with a hint of sarcasm, something that I did not expect. It must be nice to spend your life enjoying yourself. My response was simply, it is. I recommend it to everyone. My life is wonderful, but I truly believe that it is because I made some difficult decisions. I continue to make them. And while many of my friends were doing the responsible thing by choosing to pursue careers that would ensure a safe future, the nice nest egg for retirement, I chose to pursue the follow my bliss path. I decided early on that I would rather die regretting the things I had done than the things I had not. And this path of following the guidance of our spirit rather than the irrational fear of the ego is the bucket of water that liquidates the witch. You see, she has no power over us when we walk into these fears, because they are all smoke and mirrors, and they do nothing but keep us in bondage. When we work for spirit, our job security is guaranteed for eternity. Food and shelter are always provided, though not always in the same way we expect. And our relationships bring far more smiles than tears. And when we really face the witch and take a stand against her mind-freezing cackle, she and all her fear that she inspired melt away, and we are free. The water that we throw at her simultaneously quiets the scarecrow's burning mind, soothes the Tin Man's breaking heart, and it calms the irrational fears of the mind. Slowly now draw your attention simply back towards your own breathing. And as we bring you back into your body, just allow your fingers and your toes to kind of brush together. And as your fingers and your toes are beginning to brush together, let your fingers, move your wrist, let your ankles start to roll, and then kind of just start feeling the joints, moving the elbows, the knees. Draw your knees up to your heart. Once your knees are up near your heart, just kind of draw your knees wide, and for just a couple moments, gently just kind of rock side to side. And as you're rocking side to side, maybe make your way up now. Maybe drop off to one side and make your way up, or push yourself up into a comfortable seat. It's kind of cool because these cameras are always positioned in a certain way that you can't see my big Buddha. That's right next to me. So there's Big Buddha. Call him Big Buddha, Big Bun. That's what I call my cat, Big Bun. That's why it comes flying. It's a Big Buddha. So as you're here, now let's bring our hands to our heart. Let's just seal our practice today. So as you bring your hands to your heart, feel your spine get nice and tall. Feel your shoulders melt back. And as you feel your spine get tall, draw your heart to meet your thumbs, recognizing that space where we were just in Anahata. So in that space in Anahata was green, it was compassion, it was growth. And then as the thumbs are lifted, placed between the eyes at Anja, the seedling of our growth, enlightenment, intuition, and cognition. Just take a final breath here. Inhale as you reach towards the sky. May we continue our inquiry and our journey into our enlightened path. And as we exhale humbly to earth, may compassion show us the way. From my heart to yours. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Sorry about all of the little noise issue. We'll get that all worked out. Anyway, stay tuned. Make sure that we're coming back to the YouTube channel for these. Things are moving also to the video subscription online. If you're interested, you want to visit www.hard-yoga.com. And that's our website here for the studio. But we also have a video subscription where we have some professionally made videos in there. And we're adding new and more content to that regularly. So these will be limited here on Facebook, but we'll have a ton of content on the membership as well. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Give me some comments if you'd like some specifics on things that we want to work on, or if you want a class that doesn't involve so many props and such, we have those as well. They're called Stretch on here. All right, so as always, thank you so much. I love you guys so much, and until we meet on the mat next time, peace, love, happiness to all. And remember, the book I was reading also, just give you a better view, if you're like, what was that book? What was this backwards? It's Spiritual Journeys Along the Yellow Brick Road. Oh, too bad. Does it flip it around? Anyway, it's Darren Main. And we next time that we hook back up, we're at the chapter of the Scarecrow. So it's super cool. I love this as well. All right, you guys, have a lovely day. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.